Whoopi Goldberg on The View said yesterday that student loan debt needs to be forgiven because older borrowers are suffering with high balances that they can't pay back. Let's take a listen.
Betty Ann enrolled at NYU's law school.
Yeah.
She borrowed $29,000 in federal loans. She now owes over $229,000.
Oh, yeah. God.
She is 91. She sold her family furniture to make loan payments, wonders if without the debt she could have stayed in a home she once owned. Listen, these are the debts you need to forgive.
Yeah.
Because people who are in their 70s and 80s may not be making the same money they made in their 50s and 60s. You need to forgive this.
Yeah.
You need to forgive this. This is ridiculous.
So obviously I agree with Whoopi Goldberg. I'm a little frustrated that she seems not to have an appetite for policies unless they affect her literal specific cohort. So what really, sparked her passion here and her desire to finally pay attention to the student loan debt conversation that has been going on for a really long time is this article in the New Yorker about how the largest growing population of student debtors is seniors. You have an increasing number of seniors who have their Social Security checks garnished to pay their student debt. From the article, of the 45 million Americans who hold student debt, 1 in 5 are over 50 years old. And between 2004 and 2018, student loan balances for borrowers over 50 increased by 512%. So what you're seeing is an exacerbation of what's happening across the board, which is that people have huge loan balances, sure, but it's the interest that's really causing them to balloon if you fall behind on payments. And when you are older and when your opportunities for financial gain narrow, especially as you go into retirement, it becomes an enormous albatross around your neck that, unlike other forms of debt, is not dischargeable through bankruptcy.
Are these people who have just been trying to repay this debt for 30 years, or is it Americans who went to college much later in life? Do you know that?
It's both.
It's both?
It's both. So, for example, I remember a point in time, around the time I was going to college, my mother disclosed to me that she was just going to pay the minimum until she died. Like that was the best plan, like financially, because at a certain point, when you have an 8% interest rate, very, very quickly, $30,000 of debt can become $300,000 of debt. And there are programs where they say to you, okay, you lost your job, you have a low-paying job, go ahead and defer your loans, without really often explaining to borrowers how a deferment of a year, and this happened to me, a one-year deferral after law school added a $10,000 in interest to my loan right off the bat at age 25. And so you can imagine what happens. I was in a lucky position to have good legal jobs where I've always been able to pay back my debt. But people who aren't making six-figure salaries and able to keep up with the hundreds or thousands, sometimes thousands of dollars in monthly payments, very quickly fall behind. And I have many, many friends. I know many, many people who started out with the average, $200,000 in debt from law school, who now have $500,000 of debt, and one friend who even has almost $1 million in debt.
Because of the interest.
Because of the interest.
Seems like a bad financial plan for any individual person to take out these loans.
Well, they have to question the government's choice to go ahead and give these.
I do question the government should not do this. I more than question, I disagree with. We should not do this anymore. And then we should make them dischargeable in bankruptcy.
Yeah,
I agree
and
with that
that's,
policy.
Joe Biden fought for that not to be the case. It's a very coercive system where you're telling Americans, as we told them for decades, that the way forward was to get this education. There's a revisionist history that's going up right now with some boobers who are opposed to student debt cancellation, but we were told explicitly and repeatedly, you have to go to college, you have to go to college.
No,
now they're all saying, oh, but you shouldn't have gone to college. No, it was a part of the social contract that we were going to go to college and you were going to be able to get middle class jobs off of it. But it was a Ponzi scheme for most people.
If everybody goes to college, that cancels out the benefit because you have to get it above. So, I have a college degree and you don't, so I'm more qualified, or I'm more likely to get this position, even if it doesn't strictly require a college degree. If everyone does that, well, then there's just a new hoop. Well, now it's if you have a graduate degree. Why are we doing this endless credentialing, hoop jumping thing? That is if you think the point of college is purely credentialism. A sensible point of college should be to prepare you for the kind of jobs that exist in the workforce that do require a college degree, that require a higher level of reading, analytical skills, and technical expertise for which people are trained. That's part of why we do have issues
sourcing people to run the semiconductor factories, for example, that they were trying to build and compete with places like Taiwan. You do need a well-educated populace.
We bring those people in and then we send them back because of our ridiculous immigration policies.
Right.
Which don't make any sense. We're sending the people who know how to make semiconductors because we won't let them, after they get a college visa, they come here, and then that expires and they go back.
Yeah, so
and then we wonder why our enemies are getting stronger than we are.
Right. So we do need to invest in the American public, and it's not just about, college shouldn't be about competing with other people. It should be about like having an educated workforce. That's not what's happening. And this interest point, I just really want to emphasize. If the government sets these interest rates, then the government decides that they want to incentivize people to say buy a home, and they have drastically lower interest rates than people who take out student loan debt. So whereas you're paying 3% on your mortgage or whatever, those people who have student debt are paying much higher rates, and their loans are growing when they can't keep up with those loans, and they don't have an asset to rely on the same way that you do when you have a house. Moreover, other parts of our tax policy really hurt student debtors. For example, the fact that you can discharge, it used to be the full value of $1 million home in interest on your taxes in a way that you could do only up a maximum of $2,000, and only if you earned less than $60,000.
The thinking there, though, is that the house can be confiscated from you if you're not making payments on it. They can't take back your degree that you will always have no matter what. So that's the difference.
That's a reason not to give the loan in the first instance.
Well, we shouldn't give the loan in the first place, but
interest
that's the
rate,
difference.
If the government really believes it should guarantee these loans because they believe the investment in the American people is worth it, then they should go ahead and guarantee the loans. Or better, not issue these loans, create a free public college system, and actually educate kids in the way that you want to educate them to join the workforce, and get rid of this Aunt Becky situation where you have millionaires defrauding schools in order to get them in because they just want a feather in their cap, not because they actually want them to have good prospects in the job market. Right.
In those cases, in the Aunt Becky case, it's really just wanting to. They have so much money.
Yeah.
It's prestige, or like the fun experience for your little darling, because when they're comparing the schools that they cheated to get into and the next school down, it's not a huge difference.
It's not a difference.
I mean, this is true in general. Like Harvard is a great school, but the educational what you get there is not like 1 trillion times better than your next level down college. It is on paper, the prestige, the reputation, the prestige.
The thing.
The
there
actual
is real
educational,
value in
it's not. Yeah, that's all it is.
With the Aunt Becky situation, I would argue that there's not as much the reputational benefit of, say, Rutgers versus
I'm just
Syracuse.
saying this because I went to a large state school and you went to Harvard, so of course I would say that it's not that much better.
No, but I'm saying the educational, the what you get out of the marketplace and your reputation between like a Rutgers and a Syracuse is not as significant as a Syracuse versus a Harvard, I would say. Mm-hmm. So at a certain point you have to ask yourself, is it worth paying all that money to go to the private school versus the state school? Is it worth it? But I do think, regretfully, I don't think this is a good thing, there is an enormous amount of benefit that is given to you when you do go to these elite Ivy League schools, and it's especially true when you're going to law schools and professional schools where the top 14 has a dramatically different effect on your ability to participate in the corporate law marketplace than going to other kinds of schools. And I make this recommendation to people as they're asking me, should I go to law school? Should I pay for law school? I'm like, depends kind of on which one.
No.
And that's a terrible world.
I would say no.
It's a terrible world
Let's
to
just be honest, people. No, don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't take out a lot of money to go to a better, fancier, more expensive college. You will regret it. You will, 9 times out of 10, you will regret it.
But I do think that, to Whoopi's point, there are a lot of older people who are feeling this really hard. Mm-hmm. And those people are consistent voters, and there needs to not be this polarization, this stigmatization of who is going to be affected by student debt. We keep pretending that when we say millennial, we mean children. I'm almost 40. Like, the millennials are old, and it's not just millennials. Again, 1 in every 5 people with student debt is over 50 years old, and that number is only going to get bigger over time. So we got to do something about this crisis one way or the other.
This millennial is going to be a year older very soon. Don't like the prospect. We'll be back for more Rising after these messages.